will you mind moving? All right, seconded by me. And I'll just wait for one more member to come back out and vote their machine, since we only need 3 to do that. So we have 2 yays. Let me go see about getting a third. Got it. You want? Yeah. Here we go. We got 3 yays.
Yay.
So, Councilmember Thomas moved, I seconded, and then 3 yays are Thomas, Green, and Caruso. So we'll go into executive session now. Thank you very much. with executive session. Thank you. I'm going to move to come out of executive session. Seconded by Councilmember Thomas. Sorry, I'm going by the machine. Everybody in favor? Aye. Need one. Thank you. Councilmember Morel is also a yes. All right, no worries. Okay. Thank you, Councilmember Moreno. Yeah, I just want to make sure I understand what the comment cards are. So I've got a couple of comment cards here. All right, so we're out of executive session. Next item up for discussion is on short-term rentals and Granicus update. I think we're waiting on the administration to come down. Thank you. While we do that, why don't we handle some other matters? Mr. Shai points out to me that we need to approve the committee meeting minutes from September 8th, 2022. Moved by Councilmember Green, seconded by Councilmember Moreno. Five yeas, no nays. Okay, while we're waiting for the administration to come down, why don't we take up some of the budget items? Budget item number 5, or ordinance calendar numbers 33859 and 860, about appropriating funds awarded by Dow AgroScience. These funds will be used for pesticides and equipment. Moved by Councilmember Thomas, seconded by Councilmember Moreno. Waiting on two more. All right, so that's item number 5. Okay, I just want to make sure the trains are running up. So Ms. Becknell, are you going to be presenting on SDR?
I believe I'm at least part of the presentation. I'm
Okay.
just trying to get a hold of
That's
Director
fine.
Jackson.
What I would just like to do, so we keep, since executive session took us an hour, just to try and vote on things. Right now, while we're waiting, we'll come back.
Certainly, I'll be happy to step aside.
Okay, thank you. As soon as everybody's here, we'll get you right up. All right, number 6, ordinance calendar numbers 33861 and 862 to appropriate NORD funds to use for day-to-day general operations. Moved by Councilmember Thomas, seconded by Councilmember Moreno. Members, please vote your machines. 5 yeas, no nays. All right, next item is ordinance 33863 to appropriate funds to cover the increase in secondary detail participation by reserve officers and civilians. OPSI has assumed those costs. Before we vote, I do have a comment card, and I apologize, Jeanette Serrato, is that your name? Did I butcher it again? All right, sorry. I apologize.
No need. Thank you, though. It's Jeanette Jurado.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Jurado's the easy way. I just wanted to point out that there still has been no update from the administration as to how they're suggesting that the ARPA funds, be spent, and where the initial part of the first half of the tranche that we received last year has been spent, how much is left. And as it relates to the budget of expenditures, we're clearly awaiting transparency from the ordinance that you all passed this May. And we haven't seen an update since that time. So can you tell us when we will get an update from the administration? Or when the city council will be demanding an update from the administration?
Well, I would say two things. One is we don't have a breakdown on the second tranche of the ARP money either. From what I am expecting, we will not be voting on that in concert with the 2023 budget. It will not, because I think there are a number of issues that need to be worked out, primarily surpluses and budgets and what has happened. So that's sort of part one. I kind of envision this hopefully as maybe maybe a three-part process, which is we get better understanding of first tranche ARP spending, roll into the budget presentation. The budget presentation will be on October 25th. Then by law, we have to wait 5 days. Budget hearings will begin on November 1st. We'll begin the budget 2023 presentation on that day through the next roughly 2.5 weeks before Thanksgiving, and then go through final processes of approving 2023 and then the second tranche ARP spending after that.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. All right, let's vote on, I think I'm waiting on one more vote. There you go. So that's 5 yeas. All right, so let's keep on rolling with the ordinances. On number 8, ordinance number 33879, effect following changes to capital budget to appropriate funds from public works to appropriate the funds to sanitation. And otherwise with respect thereto, moved by Council Member Morel, seconded by Council Member Thomas. Waiting on 2 more. Oh, Ben Bagwell. Wait, hang on, everybody, before the vote. Mr. Bagwell, see you.
Good morning, Council. Thank you for
Morning.
being here today. I'm here again to echo your concerns, my concerns, and a lot of the residents and citizens' concerns regarding just sanitation and recycling. I know you all requested more information regarding the recycling contract about to come into place. So I was wondering, because I'm a citizen, have been trying to seek some information regarding this and haven't been very successful in this information. So I don't even know if this is for that, but I'm here to ask, just especially seeing JP Morel's Instagram post this morning about the resident who broke 2 of their legs in a pothole. Should we be filling potholes, or are we bringing, I'm just wondering where this money is going for sanitation.
My understanding, and again, the CAO was here, but just to make sure, is that this is beginning of the funds to help fund the new contracts and what's supposed to be happening next with respect to those.
Okay, and will the public ever receive information on what these new prices are going to be? Is there going to be bulky waste pickup with it only being 1 day a week when the second day a week was bulky waste? A recycling system for the last 2.5 years that the residents have been using as a trash service. And so those are just concerns that a lot of the residents are echoing to me, and I'm kind of the liaison of all of these people who support the City Waste Union and a real recycle program and care about the earth in the city are wondering.
Okay, so Councilmember Morel and Moreno are asking to reconsider the vote. So you want to move to reconsider, Councilmember Morel?
Yes.
All right,
I'll second.
second moved by Councilmember
Thomas.
Morel, Thomas seconded. Members, please vote your machines.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Ben.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye for
The
reconsideration.
vote is to be reconsidered.
All right. Gilbert, do you want to, I mean, obviously there's some consternation up here. So I just want to make sure this is on the sanitation, I think number 8, 33879. Ordinance D appropriates 1.9 million for Public Works to Department of Sanitation. I'm reading what it says, Councilmember Morel. It says 1.9. If it's 2.5, then we can discuss that. But I just want to make sure, is that for the funding for the new contract?
Mr. Chairman, my team is giving me a little bit more insight, and I'm not sure that we are talking about the same
Okay.
item or thing. I think the $1.9 million is solely related to a capital funding. It's for a building, does not have anything to
Okay.
do with the garbage collection contract.
Okay, so that makes it easier. Then what item, just so we're all clear and there is no confusion going into it?
Item 15.
50, got it. Thank you. All right, so if it's the committee's pleasure, Donna, we moved by JP, second by Councilmember Thomas. Yeah, absolutely. Please, Councilmember Morel.
Thank you. So for Ben, for your clarification, this is a vote on a capital structure, a building, not towards sanitation contracts or potholes. This is dealing with repairing a building. So the money's being moved to repair a building. Sanitation is 15. That's coming up separately. Okay,
And you don't have to fill out a new card. I'll change your 8 to 15.
so you can come back up on 15. 15 deals with moving the money towards the sanitation contracts. Yeah, they're repairing a building that deals with the sanitation department. What's that? We can get the CAO. Which particular structure is being
They
repaired?
said they're gonna find out and let you know. Yeah, they said they'll find out and let you know. All right, so with that, Councilmember Morel, I think we had a proper move and second. I don't think we voted on this though.
You vote again.
Yeah, vote again. All right. 5 yeas, no nays on the capital side of the sanitation budget. All right, now, with everybody here, let's go back to item number 4, please, which is the STR presentation by Ms. Jackson and Ms. Becknell. And I guess just to set the table, the reason why I wanted to do this was generally just to talk about the state of where the STR office is and what's going on. I know Councilmember Moreno, this has been an issue for you since providing funding to STR when you were in the legislature. But then secondly, since collectively the city and the council push towards this year, hiring additional people and investing more in the STR office, what does that outcome look like? So we know and what the public is. So with that, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Okay, good morning. Tammy
Morning.
Jackson, Director of Safety and Permits. And I'm just going to give you a general overview because one of the most important roles I have right now is hiring the right people, right? And having the right people in place. And I can tell you that Ashley Blacknell, the Chief Zoning Administrator, is one of the right people in place to do this. So she's going to give the presentation on the current status of short-term rental administration.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson.
Yes, thank you very much. I am Ashley Becknell, the Chief Zoning Official. We have prepared a brief presentation. I understand it got in too late to appear on the screen, but you should all have copies of it.
Okay.
So I know that there were a few questions about the office generally that we're happy to answer, and we just wanted to touch on a couple of topics that are in progress right now. The first and one of the most exciting is our implementation of the Granicus software. We purchased that at the end of last year through an RFP process. It has been fully implemented for the safety and permits side of the software. I believe they are wrapping up the revenue implementation now. And we are currently wrapping up our employee training with it. It's very exciting. It does automatically the work that employees were doing painstakingly and by hand to identify properties, identify violations, and it is a major tool for us to identify possible cases and to gather some of the basic evidence that's online about these cases. It also provides more robust complaint reporting for the public than we were able to offer before because it automates that service as well. There is a 24-hour hotline that is in the signature of most of our emails and on our website as well. That number is 504-788-2008. There's also an online web portal. I won't read out the URL, but we'll make sure it's widely available. It is also on our email signature lines on our website. Both of these allow citizens to make complaints about short-term rentals. The online portal allows citizens to also upload any evidence they may have that they think is relevant to their complaint, whether that's photographs or videos, a link to a listing, anything along those lines. It categorizes that for us and gives it to us in a really easily assignable format for our inspectors to begin their.
And also 311 has also put this in place as well. So when you make a complaint, the hotline number as well as the online complaint portal is listed. So we can try to keep the data in one place.
Yes. Thank you, Tammy. So through this complaint system, as well as through Granicus's web scraping, we have unearthed 918 leads of possible renting without a license over the last 60 days. that information is relatively easy for us to obtain from the software, and we were able to instantly divide them up between inspectors to go ahead and start reviewing them. These are just leads. They're not completed cases. They require careful review by our staff. They include properties that are legally licensed but aren't licensed as STRs, for example, traditional B&Bs that may also advertise on the platforms. But it gives us a starting point, which is work we were doing manually with a much smaller staff before. So very much night and day to where we were on case generation. When we do find violations at these properties, we are proceeding with warnings in case property owners are just unaware that they're not in compliance with the rules. The warnings provide a date by which compliance must be achieved, and we will proceed with adjudication if the violations are not remedied.
Ashley, can I ask this question, Tammy? Maybe a little bit unfair, but it says 918 cases of possible renting without a license, which I realize is a lot of caveating.
A lot of
Have-
caveats.
Do we have a sense of 10% maybe legitimate, 50%?
I don't have a sense of that yet because this is sort of the first tranche of leads we've gotten from Granicus. I think once we've gone through these, we'll have a better idea going forward how many of them are true violations versus reporting errors or a mistyped license number or a couple of other things that might have flagged in Granicus the system unfairly.
And I guess just to jump ahead a slide is it has total cases adjudicated 42. So even if you're at like 10%, that is a significant jump over
Absolutely.
where we are right now.
And if, I know we're jumping ahead a couple of slides,
Right,
but to go
sorry.
back to the hiring update slide, which again, I'm sorry, isn't on the screen. We have 23 total positions proposed. Of those, we have filled 12 and there are 11 still vacant. So we are still working to fill out the office, but it has already been a major change in our staffing force to have access to as many new inspectors as we have. We have 4 new inspectors and we were able to promote existing inspectors into leadership positions. So I think that our ability to investigate and to build strong cases and more strong cases is really going to improve. We've also proposed to dedicate certain analysts to just helping us prepare cases. So once an inspector has gathered enough evidence and says that there's a violation here, we have staff who's dedicated to making that digestible and presentable to a hearing officer so that it is quickly adjudicated. One of the things that is outstanding that we're working on is we have submitted an RFP to procurement that I believe should be posted any day now for additional hearing officers, because that is one of our capacity issues at the moment.
Ashley, I'm seeing the board light up. I want to ask one question to Councilmember Green, Councilmember Moreno, just to make sure we're all on the same page. For inspectors and some of these other positions, these people are also working nights and weekends.
That's correct. We run 2 shifts most days, a day shift and a night shift. On weekends, we focus more on the night shifts. That tends to be more towards the end of the week and on the weekend. And the day shift tends to be during the day, obviously during the week. But we are finally able to have dedicated night and weekend staff, which will be very, very helpful.
Thank you. All right, Councilmember Green and Councilmember Moreno.
I initially hit my button and I was going to ask you to define what a careful review by staff might involve. If that's not something that would tip off violators, I'd be glad to talk to
No,
you
I don't.
offline. Okay.
I don't
What
think
is
it
a
would. I
careful-
can give
careful
you
review?
a general overview. What the information we received from Granicus includes information about a potential illegal listing and various platforms that listing might appear on, as well as a potential address that is associated with that listing. What our staff members start with is going to LLAMA as well as the occupational license database to see, is this licensed and is there just a transcription error in the license number? Is this licensed through some other means by which Granicus cannot verify it, such as a license to B&B? Granicus is still working to integrate our occupational license database, as far as I understand it. We also looked to see whether they potentially have an application in that is just being reviewed. We just want to get a holistic sense of what the facts are before we move forward. Each case is a bit different, but if we do find that there appears to be a property that appears to have been rented without a license, we are sending a letter, which is a process Granicus automates for us. They mail the letters, they send them, makes it very easy for our staff to do that, and we're calendaring them for follow-up. We're giving folks 2 weeks to comply. Most of the time, compliance means taking down your illegal listing and canceling any bookings. At that point, we have two avenues we can proceed. One is obviously adjudication, but the other, especially for a platform like Airbnb that has this sort of interface, we can request that the property be delisted, and that will, even before the homeowner can take action, we can request that it is removed from the platform. My understanding is that also removes listings and bookings that are associated with that listing, as well as reviews associated with that listing, which tends to be a fairly powerful tool.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Moreno.
Thank you. Ms. Beck, now this is a huge jump, this 918 cases through the Granicus software. So I think that that's really great to see on finding potential violators. But looking at the staffing piece, it looks like there's only 4 inspectors right now that would be able to go through these 918.
I believe we have 2 supervisors who are working on these as well. And I believe it is 5 inspectors. I'm sorry about that.
Okay.
I think this is a number I got is transposed. We do have 5 inspectors. So that's a total of 7 folks who have split them up. Roughly about 100 apiece, a little bit more. And because these are packaged well for us by Granicus, the review for many of them is very quick. It's, simply if I go to the address in Llama, I see that there's no permit, and I see that Granicus has shown me that there is potentially proof of listing. I can go ahead, send a letter. That's the detailed review I need to do.
Okay, got it. So what you're saying is that even though there's roughly 7 people looking over these more than 900 cases, that, one person alone handling a little bit over 100 cases is not a problem.
Right. I think cases is potentially the wrong word to use. They're really more leads
Okay.
that may develop into cases. So we are having a session to touch base with our folks at the end of the month. We expect to have them mostly able to have gone through their lists and a better idea of, okay, how many letters did we send? How many do we need to follow up on? Let's move on from there. And I think that the letters will hopefully be successful in getting some resolution from people who weren't intending to violate, but maybe put their listing up before their license was approved or something like that. And then we'll be able to work on proceeding to adjudication on any that are warranting that step.
And Ms. Becknell, the reason why I'm asking, these questions is because this council is very much about enforcement of STRs. And as you know, we've struggled with this over the years, and neighborhoods have significantly been impacted by short-term rentals and due to lack of enforcement. So we want to make sure that you have what you need and as many people as you need to do proper enforcement for STRs, particularly if Granicus is now giving you, hundreds of leads on these potential violators. So please, do the full analysis that you need to do and bring it to the budget chair, myself, the rest of the council as to, what else you need for the best type of enforcement when it comes to potential short-term rental violators.
Thank you, Council President. And we certainly will do that. We are of the belief that the amount we have asked for will be sufficient, but we also have access to a new level of data with Granicus that I think may reveal that we need to tweak things. And if that happens, we'll certainly be in communication. To put it in perspective, before this staff augmentation, we were working with 5 inspectors, 1 STR administrator, and 1 analyst to do all of the licensing for the entire city and all of the enforcement for the entire city. So we've essentially doubled our capacity already, and we're still conducting interviews for both analysts and inspectors.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. So actually, just again, to make sure I understand, there are basically 7 people. You've almost doubled, and then the goal in the next couple of months is triple capacity.
That's correct.
All right. Councilmember Thomas.
First of all, thank you. This is a step in the right direction to address a huge issue. You have violations, and then you have serious violators. Does Granicus give us the ability to take a look at the history of complaints in terms of how we rank, chronicle or categorize violators and violations?
It does. Granicus, by having a portal for complaints, allows us to generate reports on complaints that we didn't have the ability to access before. It'll allow us to be more systematic in how we approach our complaint data rather than having to aggregate it ourselves and having to perform that data analysis and data cleaning. We are able to use this software to do it. So I believe that it'll give us a clearer picture of where our complaints are really coming from and what they are about. The other thing that's really going to help us as far as addressing chronic violators is having the lawyers join our team.
But, okay, since you can't do that, then does then your enforcement team begin to concentrate on those historical violators versus those people who may not understand the rules and may have committed a violation?
Absolutely. And while I can't tell you today who the chronic violators are, I would guarantee you that
Lamont
my
Street,
administrator could sit here and give you addresses, names.
Lamont Street and off of Crowder, Lake Willow, and a host of other places that are historical violators. Look, we're dealing with STRs here in terms of the description, right? But people now are creating event halls. It's gone beyond that.
We're aware of that as well. And that's, while an event hall is not necessarily a short-term rental violation, it is a zoning violation.
Right.
And we are also augmenting our zoning staff to more appropriately address other use violations besides just short-term rentals, because those are certainly not the only problem facing the city from a use perspective. They're one of many.
But they're using STR classification and Airbnb advertising
Absolutely.
to list their properties for event halls.
Yes, we are aware of that. We get complaints about that frequently, and our team is addressing those along with all of
Well,
you.
this is an answer to community prayer. This is an answer, a step in the right direction, especially because we need to make examples out of those historical violators, because they're creating an atmosphere now where folk think they can commit violations. And I would just hope that we would concentrate on the violators to send people a message that, not to do this and don't take a chance at doing this because there's some consequences. Thank you.
Certainly. Thank you.
And Councilmember Thomas, while that is a separate incident, we are, like I actually say, we are also hiring for zoning enforcement. And that team has been doubled as well in mid-year.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Thomas. Council Vice President.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know some of these questions will be sort of moot because we're in the middle of a freeze basically on short-term rentals, and there'll be some more activity on that shortly. But there were a couple of prior issues that I want to see procedurally if we resolved. I know that in one of our initial meetings, there were several people that complained about chronic violators with current complaints getting renewals. Have we eliminated that? If someone has a current complaint in the process, are they still allowed to move forward with the renewal of a permit? And I'm talking about, like, I know the exact, currently it's a moot issue, but I'm saying that in the process, have we resolved that? Since now that you have a more robust staff, we're actually starting to go through, the challenges are of tracking these properties. What I found very troubling at that time, and it could have been a staffing, it could have just been, this was back when you were stepping into the office, honestly. But the idea that you could have chronic violators who have current complaints kind of in an automatic process getting a renewal was kind of jarring. Has that been resolved?
We're working with the law department on that issue. To better understand what discretion we have when we have someone who has complaints against them, but we have not aired those complaints before a hearing officer, to make sure that we are observing due process issues as well as addressing chronic complaints.
Well, I think that it's important to us as we work and move forward with the overhaul of the STR law, that I think I speak for many of my colleagues in that there should not be people getting any renewal while a complaint is pending. I think that it sends the absolute wrong message to citizens who take the time to make the complaints. And I know that from that example we got months ago, we had an individual with 3 separate complaints that happened to move forward on. And if citizens are taking the time to document and present cases, our lack and our inability to process those cases timely should not result in a chronic violator being able to take advantage of that backlog to continue to operate. And if that person has a delay in getting their renewal, well, that's their problem. I mean, we're not saying they won't ultimately get renewed, but they need to share the same pain we have of growing pains. And until things are resolved, they should not just be through process getting renewals. Another issue that I think, and I don't know if the Granicus software addresses this, a common complaint we got, especially in the Treme and other areas, was that you had properties that had never been listed as short-term rentals that were in areas that were unpermitted to be short-term rentals that were used as overflow. Is Granicus catching that? And for an example, in areas like the French Quarter, where you've got a blanket ban on residential short-term rentals, you had individuals who would have a correct rental in the Treme or Marigny, and then when the person show up, they go, "Oh, we're full. You can go this other rental, which is not permitted, never been a rental." In the French Quarter, that were essentially illegal STRs in unpermitted areas. Does the Granicus software track that?
Granicus's ability to catch that depends on what's available on the internet. Granicus works by performing web scraping. So if a listing doesn't exist on the internet anywhere, it's hard for Granicus to see it. That said, many of the listings will state that they're in one location, but by the pictures actually be of a property that's in a totally different location. And that is something Granicus is able to check.
And I'm sure that you have guests who aren't aware of the fact it's not permitted to go, "Man, we showed up there, it was overflowed, so they sent us to another property and they're great and this property was just as nice."
Yes, we are certainly able to check the reviews and to parse that out. And one thing I think would be helpful for us to focus on as we look at the laws is potentially finding ways to encourage renters, not just neighbors, to alert our office when situations like that occur.
I think as we're moving forward with drafting new STR provisions, I think that we're going to have much more significant penalties for people that are active bad actors and attempting to circumvent the law. And though everyone is entitled to due process, they are also entitled to have heightened, if not absolute, bans and penalties. I know that in previous discussions that I've had with you and other people, I am very cognizant and aware of us looking at the possibility of putting property restrictions as a kind of final death penalty, saying that if a property is being misused as a short-term rental, we will prohibit the property itself from being allowed to be used as a short-term rental. And I think that might be a true deterrent, because no matter how many times you swap LLCs to rehab a property, if we have a listing on the property saying it cannot be permitted for a fixed number of years, it ends that ability for that owner to enjoy not just the benefit of the property, but if they chose to sell the property to another short-term rental operator, they would enter it knowing that it's not allowed to be a short-term rental. So I look forward to working with you on the long-term problems. I think this is a great step in the right direction, especially considering with the freeze. I think it makes it a lot easier for you to catch bad actors, because everyone's aware there are no new permits that are being issued for the most part. So if you have a property near you that is suddenly a short-term rental, in all likelihood, on its face, it's illegal. So if you're watching today, if you're listening, if you see a new short-term rental prop up, please call the hotline, because in all likelihood, it is absolutely illegal, because we're not doing new permits at this time.
In residential areas, yes.
Yes,
that's
in residential areas. I'm sorry, thanks for that correction. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? And I guess just Ashley, very quickly, the last slide, or second to last slide, is about 42 cases being adjudicated, about $150,000 in fines. Are we going to expect that to trend upwards given increased enforcement?
Yes, we do believe that they will. We have enhanced the way that we cite cases. Right now, our average fine is roughly around $3,500, but our highest fine to date is $25,000. I believe that that will trend upward with additional resources, as well as potential legislative changes.
Okay. And do you have a back of the envelope number for how much the fines were last year?
I'm sorry, I don't have that
all
information
right.
down here with me today.
It's all right. As I'm looking at it, I'm just kind of wondering, are we already seeing an uptick based on additional?
We are, and it's based on a few different things. I can tell you it is more increased, especially due to the pandemic. and our ability to hold hearings. So the data is, there's a causation correlation issue there that I want to be clear on, but I can tell you that we are finding as the year trends, just from the beginning of 22 through now, we are seeing larger fines, larger cases. We are having much more success, both because of the strength of our team and the size of our team, but also because of the legal help we've received from having in-house lawyers.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Green.
Thank you all and congratulations for your work on filling those jobs.
There it is.
Thank you.
My
Please continue to send good folks our way.
my message to the public, all jobs pay retirement benefits and health benefits, and you're performing a good service for the fellow citizens of our city. Good job.
I just have one more question. Is there anything about, Ashley, we can discuss publicly about the moratorium, the residential licenses that have been applied for? Are those stuck? Have those been granted?
Since the date of the IZD, we have not renewed or issued any new residential licenses. The IZD, as you know, did allow the existing residential licenses to stay in effect. So that's currently the situation.
Okay. So in other words, everything that was pre-IZD flowed forward, but anything that did not was
For residential permits.
for
yes.
residential permits was stuck. Okay. All right. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very
I
much.
appreciate it. All right. With that, we'll get back to the regular agenda. Think, Mr. Shy, unless I'm wrong, that would take us to item number 9. Is that correct? Thank you. All right, ordinance calendar number 33880. This ordinance de-appropriates roughly $275,000 from various departments, boards, and commissions, and then appropriates about $6 million to other departments and commissions. So I have a motion to approve by Councilmember Moreno, second by Councilmember Green. Members, please vote your machines. 4 yeas, no nays. Number 9 carries. And Mr. Shy, while we're doing these, everything that is approved unanimously, can we please get on the consent agenda for the next council meeting? Thank you, sir. Number 10, ordinance calendar numbers 33881 and 882, appropriating $950,000 from miscellaneous programs, Department of Homeland Security. Move for approval. This is for purchasing of radiological and nuclear detection equipment for the region to pay salaries for workers under the grants. Moved by Councilmember Green, seconded by Councilmember Moreno. 4 yeas, no nays. That carries unanimously. Number 11 is calendar number 33883, 884. These appropriate funds from Gentilly Development District to purchase cameras and to work with Cox Communication under tech connectivity, if I can say that correctly, for the district. Councilmember Green, you want to move on that since it's your district? Seconded by me. 4 yeas, no nays. Item number 12, calendar numbers 33887 and 888. Appropriate $500,000 from miscellaneous programs to the mayor and miscellaneous other programs.
Question.
Yes, Councilmember Moreno with the question on this one.
I'm not, can you come up or whoever wants to talk about the evening reporting center? I'm just trying to, I don't think we've received an update on the evening reporting center for quite some time. And I would just like, before voting on this, to get some of the outcomes. Who can, if anyone can speak on the evening reporting center. Tanisha's on our way. Okay, let me, can we defer it?
Sure, absolutely. We'll just wait till, I think Councilmember, we're not deferred, just delay.
Yeah, just defer, just temporarily, until later in the agenda, please.
You got it. All right. Item number 13, members, I do have a card on this just to let everybody know. This is appropriate grant funds from U.S. Department of Labor to the Office of Workforce Development to assist job seekers and employers in Orleans by providing career and training services. Mr. Aguilar, are you still here? Or sorry, ma'am. Sorry. Would you like to speak on this item?
Did you read the comment already?
The comment says administration, well, says administration needs to provide a breakdown of the amounts of money that went to each department in the first tranche of ARP funds and how much of that is left. That is a comment on the card. Is that the comment you wish to be made part of the record?
Yes,
Yes. Is there anything else that you wish to add to that?
Sí,
yes.
sí, anteriormente que mencionaste,
I heard previously that you mentioned
que es difícil saber el desglose o el
that it's hard to know the breakdown
sobre el dinero que no ha sido asignado, pero
about the money that has not been assigned yet.
sabemos de que este dinero ya fue asignado, la primera parte de este dinero.
We know that the first part of this money has been assigned,
Sí es importante, tenemos que tener un desglose de cómo eso fue distribuido.
and it's important to have a breakdown of how that was distributed.
Como parte de la comunidad queremos saber
As
¿verdad?
part of the
dónde
community,
fue
we would like to know where
cada uno de esos centavos de los fondos de ARPA.
all of that money from the ARPA funds went.
Gracias.
Thank
Or-
you.
Thank you. I got the thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you all very much. We've obviously have heard that, and I think as part of the budget process, we will make sure that that information you've requested, I'm trying not to go too fast for you, that we've requested becomes public, so that way you have those answers.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right. So with that, I will entertain a moval on the two ordinances for item number 13, moved by Councilmember Green, seconded by Councilmember Moreno. 4 yeas, no nays. Number 13 passes unanimously. All right, next number 14, this is appropriating $379,600 from miscellaneous programs, appropriate federal funds awarded by FY 21 Assistance to Firefighters Grants, New Orleans Fire Department. So I'll accept a motion to approve. Moved by Councilmember Moreno, seconded by Councilmember Green. Waiting on one more. 4 yeas, no nays. All right, I guess Mr. Torrey and Mr. Montano, do you want to come talk about item number 15? Because I know there's questions about this in light of the recent litigation, kind of where we stand. And I guess, let me just sort of like put the ultimate question out there, which is, if we are bound for the time being with the current operator, then why are we expending funds on somebody else as a backup if they can't perform?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, thank you. I know that there is a hearing later this afternoon at 4 p.m. where we should have a little bit more insight, but for those specific questions, I'm just going to kick off to Matt Torrey, who's the lead on this.
Sure.
Sure. So Councilmember Druso, just to make sure I understand, your question was, why are we continuing to move forward with appropriating funds for the new contracts in light of the bankruptcy filing?
Yes, in other words, it seems like we're paying two people to do something where the court is staying action so that the current contract remains in place.
So we're currently not paying two people monies right now. I think what the city is continuing to try to do is position ourselves to be ready for November 7th in light of the ongoing bankruptcy proceedings. I mean, there's still weeks away. City is still moving forward towards November 7th, and we need to be able to be ready to take action should that happen. So having the necessary funds in order to fund those contracts, once they're in place, is an action that still needs to happen.
Okay, I guess, again, just speaking for myself, today's 13th. We don't have a council meeting till next week. We have a special meeting on the 25th. We have another meeting on the 3rd. I'm getting closer to kind of wanting to know what the bankruptcy judge is telling us to do rather than taking action. And look, I am extraordinarily sensitive to, I do not want to leave the city in a bad position of not having trash picked up. Let me be 100% clear about that. On the other hand, I'm leery of appropriating money without kind of knowing where the court is headed either. Councilmember Moreno?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, you're actually just speaking the talking points I was going to make. No, that's great. I would suggest really deferring this item for now, Mr. Chair, just because we just had an executive session we're fully briefed on this item. And I think actually the most prudent thing to do is to defer this item until we get more clarity after today's hearing, get more clarity from the court and see how this moves forward, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, council member. Councilmember Morale.
Just simply to add to what's been previously stated, I do think that on the one hand, certainly due to what has transpired with the current contractor, due to the fact we have a hearing pending today, and due to the ability of the council to meet at any time in an emergency proceeding, should there be an interruption in service to activate those contracts, I think financially that would be the most prudent thing to do. But I would add 2 additional points. The first is we are allocating the money to do this from I believe we're allocating this money from the police department. Is that correct, Mr. Chairman?
It is, I think, a combination of police and potentially other sources, but primarily.
Primarily police. And I think that as we are considering both this year and next year's budget and considering appropriating additional money to the police department, that we should be cognizant of the fact that this is essentially robbing Peter to pay Paul. And I think that as we are trying to assure residents that all existing resources are being used to address and fight crime, taking money out of the police department's budget to fund sanitation could be interpreted very poorly by our constituents, by the public, who are watching us on the one hand scream that we should be allocating unforetold amounts of monies to additionally fund the department while casually swiping several $1 million to put into sanitation. The second thing that I would say, and I think this will come out in the course of the bankruptcy proceeding, is that the existing contractors in the bankruptcy proceeding make a series of very significant allegations that I would like to see addressed before we move forward with the contracts. Whether those allegations have merit or not, I don't know. I'm not going to speak to that, but I think that there are some allegations that are made. I think that as the court proceedings move forward, I think having some of that resolved, at least in a judicial forum, would give us all greater comfort in moving forward with new contractors. And my last piece, and I hate lawyers, that's my last piece. My last point is that I know we've been working diligently on addressing assignment language, and I would like to make sure that's also in a good place because, as I said, and I'll repeat, I am against assignment clauses, generally speaking, in public contracts, especially those that are publicly bid, because I think that if we're going to go through a competitive RFP process to assign contracts, to give contracts, assignment clauses are against public policy because we are then allowing a third party to come in that was not privy or participating in that process, did not win that contract to essentially buy it. That's the end of my comments, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councilmember Green, is there anything you'd like to add?
Mr. Chair, may I?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mr. Chair, Councilmember Vice President Morel, thank you for the comments. There's just one I wanted to highlight in full transparency, both at the mid-year budget level and for the fiscal year 23 budget level. We unequivocally will be using pigeonholed vacancy surpluses to be filling other pieces of different proposals relative to the budget, meaning when the excess surplus of police is being moved over, as much of the entire mid-year was moved over by surplus, what we are planning on proposing to the council and what we've had many discussions with and even heard feedback from you all is to not lock up our money any longer with positions that are not going to be filled. So we are taking a new strategy. It's going to be a significantly more cumbersome strategy, one that will involve council significantly more on likely a quarterly basis, but it will absolutely be shrinking existing budgets until the time is necessary and needed to fill those positions. And in a hypothetical dynamic, instead of funding police, an additional 200 positions day one, we will fund them enough to carry them out through the quarter and then continue to populate them. And we've said very clearly, no one will have any hiring freezes to address these, especially those most significant departments. But tying up all the funding, especially even in our external agencies, is no longer a strategy that we're going to try to propose, but just the opposite, as we did for the mid-year and then certainly will for the fiscal year 23 budget.
And I certainly appreciate that when it comes to a variety of departments that many of which are not asking for additional funding. But when we look at the fact that currently, and the council finds out many things in the media before we find out from actually the administration, but when we were told that the police department is now seeking to fill 50 to 75 civilian positions, the department is leaning into new hiring strategies to backfill its ranks. And it would seem to me, as we're encouraging the department to push towards civilianization, for example, and that was an announcement that I believe took place, Mr. Chairman, less than a month ago, that as they continue to find new and innovative ways to grow alternatives within the department, these are things that we are not building into the budget forecast, at least not from the council perspective, because we weren't even told about the 50 to 75 new positions for civilianization until the announcement was made. And if the department's going to continue, and I agree, to be aggressive in addressing holes in positions, defunding it to fund sanitation does not seem to be a prudent measure. Now, if there are other departments where they have fund balances, where they believe that they do not need that money, or the administration believes that the money is not necessary in this budget year, I would be more than willing to consider taking money from those departments. But as I think it sends a tremendous mixed message to the people of the city of New Orleans, that as we're leaning into the idea that we are going to at least consider, and I say that from the council perspective, consider proposals that are going to supercharge funding the department in some means. Why are we scraping $2 million from it right now to fund sanitation contracts? I think that there are a variety of buckets of money. I think that honestly, having additional time on our hands due to the bankruptcy proceeding might allow us to look at what existing revenues we have and provide more time to find alternative mechanisms to fund this tranche of money. Because I do think that based upon what's going on in bankruptcy court, it is more than likely you're going to have a pause on getting this money today. And maybe we can revisit what pots of money we could go to if necessary to fund these initial contracts and get these guys started. So I do think that, and I hate to beat a dead horse, this is sending a tremendous mixed message to the public. And I think that is something we should give further consideration to. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chair, and Council Vice President Morrell, I guess I'll just try to re-clarify, and I'm not trying to beat a dead horse either, is that our objective is to better size the actual funding for each agency. So instead of projecting budgets year end, we will be using the actual budget that they need to survive over the course of the given quarter. So we will have no intentions of defunding any agency, frankly, but only making sure that they are right sized to address the needs and the missions that they have to accomplish, police specifically included. Relative to the civilianization piece, that is absolutely moving forward and will be proposed in our fiscal year 23 budget. So there would be no action relative to this current year, as they're just, beginning to that process. And I'll stand corrected if I'm misstating those terms, but that's my understanding. And the proposal will be for the 23 budget.
Okay, so what you're saying today is the 50 to 75 civilian positions that are being advertised are not coming online until next year.
Mr. Chairman, Council Member Morrell, that's where I want to make sure that I'm standing corrected. I'm not sure exactly the timeline of when those positions are, or if I believe they're in the process of being created through the Civil Service Department in the process. I will stand to be corrected if anyone else has more information.
I think Councilman Morrell is going to take it over from here, but I do think that in itself, if the new positions, if that is correct, that they're not being funded till next year, that means that there has been a tremendous misrepresentation to the public, seeing that we are in October, that they were told, and like I said, we find out to the public that's listening, we find out about the announcements when you find out about the announcements, but the representation to the public was that this was an immediate concern by the police department. Civil Service has already approved these positions, as I believe, that they are coming online this year. And if they are coming online this year, that is a new cost that will be allocated to the department that we will have to find funding for. I yield to the council president.
I'm going to yield to Mr. White, who is standing behind you.
And Mr. Chair, if I was incorrect, 1,000 apologies. Thank you, Mr. White, for getting me straight.
No, I think you're absolutely correct. We'll just go into the numbers through the chair. I know we'll get to the reports in a little bit, but as we went through the personal spending every month, we knew there was a large surplus, right? We knew that. And then we made those adjustments to pay for the 5% COLA and then everything else. But if you look at police department now, even if we project the year-end spending, there's still $8 million sitting there of overage that was intended to help pay for these new additions that we bring in. We didn't suck the entire budget from them. We left the 8 million there to deal with this circumstance.
Mr. White, what's the cost of the 75 civilian positions? I asked this last budget meeting.
Right, so I don't know the details of that. We left 8 million for it. Even if we know the cost, and we can get that to you before the meeting's
I know
over
you
with.
told me this last budget meeting.
Well, not me. You never.
Okay,
asked me.
not you, Mr. White. You're right.
Right.
You're right.
I can write it down to make sure I get the answer to you. But even if we project those positions, we're not going to get them all in the last quarter, but there's 8 million here to deal with whatever it is.
So, so how many do you hope to get this year? Because some of the positions have been created. You know, you had on the investigative specialists for, you know, for example, for sex crimes, also for PIB. There's certain already civilian positions that are already created that you all hope to rise those numbers. And then you're creating some of the additional positions as well. So like, when do you know, how many do you plan to fill this year? What does that look like?
Right. So I'm going to let the police department go into the details of their budget. I'm just simply saying what we did was leave these monies there for that particular purpose, but we can get you specifics to them.
But see, I think the point here is that, you know, you don't know how much you're going to need for the civilian positions this year. So to the point of removing $2.5 million for the police department, I mean, and sending it to sanitation, that's where it gets a little problematic, that it's like everyone's numbers aren't, you know, fully, I guess to use the CAO term, fully cooked, fully baked is what you like to use. And so, you know, I think we've got surpluses in other particular departments. You know, if we were sending $2.5 million to maybe another public safety initiative, I think it would make more sense. But to take money from the police department towards sanitation contracts, I think sends a confusing message to the public, since we're saying that, you know, so much needs to be invested in public safety, so much needs to be invested in our police department.
And just wanted to highlight the funding necessary would only be, and I'm, once again, for the record, I'm glad I was corrected, is for the last quarter. So it would only be 1/4 of actually that salary before the final proposal in 23.
There are also a lot of different tech type of things that you and I have talked about, Mr. Montano. I mean, this money, this 2.5 million could be moving toward, you know, whether we're working on RFPs, you know, as we talked about in my office the other day for a full, you know, tech enhancement dealing throughout our criminal justice system. Like, these are all things that we could be using this particular money for, that could really impact in a positive way our criminal justice system. I just think there's a better investment for this 2.5 million that's already in the police budget. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I guess let me make sure. I want to have 2 points of clarification. Sorry, Matt, we're going down NOPD road now. Gilbert, are we going to budget, or is the plan to budget NOPD again at $215 million like we did this year, or is that unknown? Yeah, I'm sorry. The plan to budget NOPD again at $215 million like they were originally budgeted this year?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I think we are fully baking, not to, you know, reemphasize that term. The actual proposal to you all, I'd be a little reticent to provide that information, not in a way that I'm trying to obfuscate the question, but I think there's still a little bit work to be done. I will highlight the intention, however, is to really be evaluating specifically our criminal justice agencies a little bit more on the quarterly basis and making sure that they have the resources needed on a quarterly basis as opposed to a yearly basis, and try to give them the resources necessary each quarter as a result of, here's a bunch of money, do your best, and then let's have a huge fund balance at the end.
I think that makes a lot of sense based on the second point I'm about ready to make, which is, you know, Mr. White, if I look at the second column that is year-to-date spending by NOPD, that's $72 million, and 72 divided by 9 is 8 million, right? So then take 8 million and multiply that by 12, you get 96 million. That's what really the projected full year will look like based on actual. And I think given the fact that we're 3/4 of the year, that's probably pretty good math. And then 136 million minus 96 million is 40 million. So we're potentially looking at a much bigger surplus in NOPD than just 9 million bucks.
And I'm assuming you're looking at page 6. Is that
I'm
the one
looking
you're
at page 6. I'm looking at the second column, and all I'm saying is year-to-date spending is 72. So I'm just doing math. I'm just taking it forward, and that's going to be, adding, what is that, $24 million for October, November, and December. And then if you really subtract 136 minus 96, instead of $9 or $8 million, you're left with $40 million.
Right. And so if you look at the third column, that's our projection for the yearly spend there.
Right.
And I think you have to bake in the additional 5% we added, not just a straight formula that you're based. But I get your point. There is a surplus there. Clearly, we took a lot of it away. We left this here
Right.
for that particular purpose. But to your point, based on the strategy using, why would we go back in and fund that surplus again when we know we're not able to spend
That's,
it?
I think we're all on the same page.
Yes.
Thank you very much. All right, Mr. Bagwell, you're welcome to speak again, but the sense I'm getting from my colleagues is we're going to defer this item for the time being, but you're absolutely welcome to your 2 minutes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to echo you all's concerns again, and a lot of concerns of the residents of the city. And a question as well, because you all set this precedent of, are we accepting this new contract that did raise 300%?
Are you asking us?
As a question, yeah. Is that because I'm trying to figure out just what is that new price of sanitation going to cost? And
Have you, what we will, just when we do this, Ben, there is a presentation that has been made at sanitation. I know Matt has made it, that shows sort of what the original price per can was, and then an additional fee, and then it compares what the new price per can is for once a week and twice a week. And so it has it all set forth. It's a good little table. I've used it in my neighborhood presentations that shows, and we're happy to send that to you.
And my main only concern is that I'm looking out for the city here and the residents. So because just learning from this whole process and just what's going on and what's happening, I just want to know, I want to let the citizens in the city know that there could be solutions that could benefit the city, that could provide opportunities to the city, that also could provide resources to the city, and potentially help a department that has a deficit. So, and that's, instead of sending resources and jobs to Jefferson Parish and then sending resources to Baton Rouge, it could be worth considering, how do we make this money that the city is investing benefit the city, especially if it's going to be a 7-year contract and we have this big plan to bring us into the new century.
Yeah,
That's all I'm kind of here to.
No, I get it. And you're making a good point. I think in a way, we're all trying to say the same thing, which is there are some surpluses this year. We know there's going to be issues with the total number of vacancies. How then, knowing both of those things, do we spend our money in the best way possible to serve all New Orleanians?
Perfect, because people really care about this. And just one more last point is, for the last 2.5 years, we've been using a recycle can as a trash can. And the way that process works, and my only fear is that we're going to get into this contract and then it's just going to cost us more than we even thought. And I don't know the writing in that contract to where do we have to pay it now? Because we've been using this can as a trash can, me included. When you pay for this waste to be recycled, you get charged penalties if it's not actually recyclable material. And if you go visit CW in Jefferson Parish, or if you talk to Republic in Baton Rouge, most of our loads are contaminated. And if we are going to roll out this program that the people do want, this recycling program, because most people do want it, there's just been way too much hesitation over the past so many years in this program. And now would be a great time to roll out this new program with education on what goes in the bin and just how do we make it work? Because I really want this to work. I want it to be beneficial for the city, and it can be a great program to really provide resources and benefits. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben. Appreciate it.
Councilmember,
Torrey?
so just real quickly. So as you mentioned, we have been here several times, and I think there's excellent material out there that folks can go see if they want to get updated on the actual cost of the contracts with regards to recycling specifically, since that seems to be the topic at hand. The contracts deal with the collection and transportation of those materials. Where the city doesn't have a contract for processing, we're locked in on our rates based on the way the contracts are currently set. any risk around contamination is borne by the contractor based on the prices that they bid. We've been told by the processing facilities that our contamination rate is in line with other municipalities in the state of Louisiana. We're only doing recycling for half the city, remember as well, but we are cognizant of the fact that recycling hasn't been happening in half of the city. We've been working with the recycling partnership. They've given the city, are about to issue the city a grant. Every resident in the city that has received services from the city will receive materials in the mail from the recycling partnership over the next couple of weeks, talking about the relaunch of recycling, what to do, how to get ready for that. We'll also be sending out labels for the residents that have the black recycling carts so that they can be more clearly distinguished. So we are well aware that there certainly will be a re-education effort that's going to need to happen when we relaunch recycling on November 7th. And that will be a process and will take some time, you're right, to get back on track. But I think the city is committed to relaunching that program and growing it as we go forward.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Matt. All right. So I think we're going to stand pat on 15 for now. And then with Ms. Stevens back, Councilmember Moreno has asked if we go back to item number 12.
Hey, Ms. Stevens, come on up. On item number 12, which is for the evening reporting center, Commissioner Stevens, we have not received, the very latest, on what's happening with the evening reporting center, kind of successes of the evening reporting center. So we just wanted to hear from you as to what's the status of the program, how's it going, how many kids it's impacted, things like that.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good to see you all. In the evening reporting center, we did have a report and we'll make sure you get it. I'm not sure if it was sent before along with the other juvenile ask. We recently submitted the report to the state because of this funding that came from Senator Harris in the opening of the center in New Orleans East.
Right.
So I can give you the numbers that we had that we actually turned in. And it was 113 youths from July 1 of 2020 through June 2022. 100 youth were accepted into the evening reporting center. And just to be clear, those kids are referred from juvenile court to the evening reporting center. So what we noticed a few months ago that we weren't getting the number of youth being referred from the court. So we started looking at the population sheet that goes out every morning to see how many youth are at JJIC and to see how many youth can be transferred or should be going to the evening reporting center based on the charges and the race score that they get once they come in for assessment. So right now, as it stands, 78 kids have completed the program thus far this year. 4 kids have been discharged and non-compliant. So those kids went back to the court for whatever the court deemed necessary, if they needed to be revoked or sent back to another program. We had 7 of the kids in the program now are from New Orleans East. What we do see is most of our kids that are in the evening reporting center are coming from that zip code 70126 through 70129. However, the caveat to that is those kids also attend school uptown.
Right, right.
So instead of transporting them from school at 3 o'clock to New Orleans East and making sure that they come to the program, they're getting the kids from school uptown and actually coming to the center on Washington Avenue when it is conducive for the kids and the family, because the program is not just serving the kid, it is actually bringing the family or the guardian, whoever the kid resides with, to the program.
So has the issue been resolved with the court sending a higher number of kids to the evening reporting center?
Ms. Watson has been working with Judge Anderson Bates on that. And I think to some degree, she's seeing more kids because she recently got 3 kids last week. So that is an indication that the conversation has been getting better.
Why wasn't it happening? Like I don't understand that.
It's a couple things. It's a tool for the judges to use, which they don't have to use if they don't want to use. And I think that's part of the problem, making it more direct for them to understand this is a program that is set out to help young people, and not just the young person, but the whole family. So we need to take advantage of the program. And then from my understanding, talking to a few judges, they use other programs like the FINS program if they feel that the family needs FINS instead of the evening reporting center. But it is actually the discretion of the judge, and that's how it's written in the contract. And another factor to factor in is that the DA diversion, juvenile diversion picked up. So they've diverted some kids to the juvenile diversion program within the district attorney's office.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I mean, I think we need to do whatever possible to use this tool, particularly if
Absolutely.
with the numbers that you're telling me, it seems to be impactful. Who's the contractor for this program?
It's under the Office of Criminal Justice Coordination.
Okay. And who's the operator?
It's Pat Watson, Family Center of Hope.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
No more questions. Thanks.
Thank you. Are you
That's it.
ready to vote? All right. Thank you, Commissioner Stevens. Thank you, for being there. Thank you for being here. All right. Moved by Councilmember Moreno on item number 12. I'll second. One more, 4 yeas, no nays. Okay. All right. So that takes us then to item number 16. These next ones are all about appropriating money with regard to hurricanes, essentially, unless I say otherwise. So I'll accept a motion for approval on item 16. Councilmember Moreno, second by Councilmember Morel. Thank you, Madam President. 4 yeas, no nays. Item number 17, same thing. Moved by Councilmember Moreno, seconded by Councilmember Morel. A strong effort by Councilmember Green to be the seconder.
Right. I want to second one
That's
thing.
right. Yeah, no,
before
we'll
this
get it.
Just- No, that's just.
4 yeas, no nays.
Absolutely, just joking.
Nays. Same thing. This is now Hurricane Sally on 19. Let's let the machines catch up. Moved by Councilmember Morel, second by Council President. 4 yeas, no nays. Item number 20, same thing. Moved by Councilmember Morel, seconded by Councilmember Moreno. Waiting on one more. No worries. 4 yeas, no nays. 21. This is to appropriate private funds awarded by the United States Conference of Mayors Reform to fund law enforcement assisted diversion initiative and partner with the city of New Orleans. Moved by Councilmember Moreno, seconded by Councilmember Morel. 4 yeas, no nays. Item number 22 is to transfer North Sea Aquatics wages on the wage reserves to facility maintenance costs. Councilmember Morel moved, seconded by Councilmember Moreno. Waiting on one more. 4 yeas, no nays. Then item number 23, this is again to purchase radiological and nuclear detection equipment, pay salaries of employees. Moved and seconded properly. Morel, Moreno.
That number is correct. $1,007.
That's $1,000. It's big money.
All right.
All right.
Radiological equipment. All
Yes,
right.
correct. Yes. Yeah. I think it's an add-on to the earlier.
Yeah, that amount is correct. It was a correction to an earlier expenditure ordinance in the year.
There you go. Thank you. Good catch. All right. Item number 24. This is appropriate federal grant funds to Office of Community Development to provide funding for affordable housing financial gaps. Moved by Councilmember Moreno, seconded by Councilmember Morel. 4 yeas, no nays. Then item number 25. This is transfer mosquito, termite, and rodent control wages to other operating. Moved by Councilmember Morel, seconded by Councilmember Moreno. 4 yeas, no nays. Item number 26, we do have a comment card. Is Latoya Johnson still here? No? Okay. I think the issues are the same. And the comment just for public comment is you are all invited to meet with our members from New Orleans Workers Center for Racial Justice on 10/26 discuss how federal funds can be used to implement equitable recovery for essential Black and Latino workers in New Orleans. That's again on the 26th at 7 o'clock. This is appropriate federal grant funds. Moved by Councilman Morel, seconded by Councilman Moreno. All right. Waiting on one more. 4 yeas, no nays. All right, Mr. Hagman, we're almost at the end. So just to get your discussion, please, on these civil service items related to library archivist, library fiscal administrator, and new special rate of pay for sewage and water board.
The first item is a new classification for the library. It's going to be entitled Library Archivist. This is a dedicated specialized position that oversees the library's central archives in its special collection division. It would be at pay grade 82 with a hiring rate of $63,960. This is really important. This is like when a city archives its records, basically this is the position that's in charge of, in effect, developing the policies and procedures of the archives division.
Just forgot 27. All right, anything from the dais? Next one.
The next position is another dedicated specialized position for the library. It's entitled Library Fiscal Administrator. They have a pay grade of 90 with a hiring rate of 72, step 11, which would be 72,420. As you know, the library is basically the financial function is considerably increased by the amount of construction in capital type activity. And this position basically plays a major role in addition to its normal purchasing and budget responsibilities.
Okay, thank you.
The last item is a special rate of pay for the Storage and Water Board employees whose primary job is going to be basically pipeline assessment and inspection. This special rate of pay, it'll be 5%, and it's really to incentivize professional development for all its employees in the inspectional area.
What do you mean it's 5%? It's 5% in addition to?
It's basically a person has a base rate. Usually it's a grade and step like those other two classifications.
Okay.
This particular special rate of pay would increase a person's step by 4 steps, and that would count to essentially 5%.
Answer your question?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Hagman. In my zeal to hear from you, I forgot item number 27. So we're going to vote on that. This is to appropriate money relative to the French Quarter Economic Development District. So moved by Councilmember Morel, seconded by Councilmember Green. One more. 4 yeas, no nays. All right, the last item is the budget reports. It's coming, okay. Thank you. And colleagues, I'll defer to you. We can either go slide by slide or we can take some macro questions, given the fact that we've seen this already. All right. I appreciate the big packet. I guess really, are there any highlights that you all want to point out in this information? I mean, I know we have REC also on Friday, so we're really going to be going over the same information again there. I guess I don't, if you all want to take your time, that's fine. But I guess what I'm saying is we're happy to accept a executive summary version unless there's something you all want to drill down to.
Through the chair, no, I'm happy to. I've got other stuff I can get back to, right? So I don't know if maybe Matthew, you want to add anything to the revenue category as a highlight?
I mean, I didn't have anything prepared, especially, but other than things seem pretty where we expected. Of course, the other taxes category, we had the upgrade in that category at the last REC. So we're looking forward to a fruitful festival and a holiday season.
Great. And I think that's it, unless anybody, again, we're gonna go over this again on Friday. That's where I know we'll be asking and showing information related to both where we are in the fourth quarter, and you all provide this report on a monthly basis. So again, I don't want to take any opportunity away from the city to make
The
any
only thing,
announcement.
Mr. Chair, the only thing I would mention, and I'm not quite ready to explain it as a trend, but we're seeing positive movement on the hiring process. I think the recession has caused some to seek stability in their work, and government jobs have always been that background. So we're seeing some of the registers and some of the categories starting to fill up again. So that is positive news. Nothing we can trend yet or really celebrate on, but the numbers in some cases are going the right way as it relates to our registers and people applying. A lot attributed, I believe, to that recession or the potential.
Yeah. It's kind of strange on Gilbert how forcing the economy to a recession ultimately forces people to go back to work. I mean, that's just sort of the causal effect.
The chair, can I add this other one? I know you were
Sure.
making a point earlier regarding the personnel service spending projections, and clearly, once the 5% actually hit, we'll re-project the ending numbers. There's still a little bit of conservative pieces in here where some surplus will be there, which kind of go into what Gilbert was talking about earlier, and I think you were alluding to as well.
Yeah.
So certainly we'll be able to adjust that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I guess I was making a detailed point, but for a larger one, which is just, I think we all want to make sure that every agency has the money that it needs, but there's certain departments where because of the hiring issues, that it probably makes a lot of sense to drill down on a quarterly basis and make sure we're funding them properly rather than holding on to all or hoarding all the cash for a long period of time when it can be doing other things.
And I think that's certainly right. I think we'll move from more projection 1-to-1, 100% funding.
Right.
Knowing full well there's a spending trend for most departments over 4 years, we can see where they are and make that adjustment based on actuals, not just budgeted numbers. So
Thank you so much. All right. Anything else? Like I said earlier, the comments were down, so we'll also post those online. Mr. Shy, Mr. Calvin, thank you so much for that. Councilmember Green, you want to motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
All right. I will second. We stand adjourned, 3 ayes. Thank you very much. 4, make it 4, Don.